Hello and welcome to Pantheon Tea. Let me just say this, guys. If you want to know what's going on with Webtoons, then you need to be following the money. See what Webtoons is spending money on and how they're getting their bag, and you will have all of the answers you need to understand exactly what this company is doing. Like, don't pay attention to anything that they post on socials. Don't pay attention to anything that they say they're going to do. Pay attention to what they're spending their money on, and then you'll be able to figure things out. And that's why I feel that covering the IPO information that they had to release for legal purposes is so important for creators to understand, because if you're planning to work with Webtoons, then you really need to understand exactly how the company is functioning, whether or not, your view aligns with them, and then going from there. Of course, it's a business, a corporation, which means like your viewpoints aren't going to align 100%, but it's always best to know who you're going into business with. So that way, when the expectations are dropped, you're kind of like, I expected it. And that's what we're going to be covering today. Of course, with that said, I just want to remind everybody that everything that I say, take it with a grain of salt. Although I might do research for some of this, remember that everything is my opinion. You can pause the disclaimer to read it. And with that, let's go ahead and jump into what we're going to be talking about. And of course, your boy is following it up with Reddit. I just want to say this. Like, I know that Reddit is not always the place to, per se, get all of your information from. But I feel like with this one, we can trust the source a little bit more and the perspective that they're giving. And let's go ahead and pull that up. Oops, here we go. And so there is this article here that we're going to be talking about. You can check out the link in the description if you want to read it all yourself. I'm going to be going through it, all of the points that was brought out in this information. And just to kind of preface this, I want you guys to understand that this is from the creator of Taddy. So if you know who that is, Danny, then I feel like he compiled all of the information in a very digestible way for us to look at and go through, so that we can kind of see what's happening and understand exactly how a lot of the huge document can be consumed. And he also linked what they gave to the SEC. So if we click on this, just so you guys can see it, like if you want to read it for yourself, this is what the actual document looks like. It's like an official document. Like, it's not like, oh, we're playing around with this. Like, no, like the government, whenever you have something going on with the government, documents like this have to be released. Oh, Jess, hello. Rizzle, what is up? So glad that you both could make it. Oh, and Tuesday, thank you for telling me about that. If you guys don't know, Tuesday was telling me about a feature that Webtoon was going to release. It's called Coco Mix. It's basically a feature that uses comments to generate alt text for blind/visually impaired readers, which is pretty interesting. I would be curious to see more about that. But going back to this, getting back on topic, this is the official document. So this is where all of the information that Danny took and made the Reddit post, because if you look at this is tons of pages. Like, if you see the little scroller over here, this is a lot of information to go through, and this is what Webtoon submitted. So like, this is not like, something that they didn't agree with. This is what they said. This is like what they're standing on. This is their business. So getting back to it, we're going to cover it. If you guys have questions or comments, go ahead, or not go ahead, but you can comment on whatever you want as we go ahead and build on the different topics and different information that is here. So this is what he said. 8 fascinating things I found reading the Webtoons investor document. Number 1, Webtoons isn't just one app, it's a collection of 7 apps. And so here are all of the images that we can see here. So there's Webtoon Japan, Webtoon Korea, Webtoon English. Then they have Series Korea. They have Moonpie Korea, ebook Japan, and then Wattpad. So that is a lot already. He goes on to say Webtoons is more than a comics app. It's actually 7 really popular comic and story apps. Webtoons, Webtoon Korea, Line Manga, Naver Series E, Book Japan, Moonpie, and Wattpad. And some of these apps are tailored to a very specific demographic area, Korea and Japan, which we see that. We see that listed here already, like Webtoons kind of gives information about like who their businesses are, who they're developing for, and we can see that a large percentage of it is overseas because out of the 7 apps, only 2 are focused on English. I do think that they're trying to widen their market into the English demographic because that's what this is. That's why we're getting this documentation over here is because they're trying to expand. So let's look at his next point. There is a cultural difference when it comes to readers in Korea, Japanese, and other markets. The biggest difference is when you look at how many people in Korea and Japan are willing to pay for comics and how much they are willing to pay. So I just want to pause right there. Tuesday said, what happened to Yonder? Is that one of their apps, Tuesday? Let's look it up real quick. I will go ahead and pull it up. So what is it? Webtoon Yonder? Webtoon, or should I say Naver? Let's just look that up really quick. And Tuesday coming with all of the information. I'm not necessarily seeing anything that says that Naver owns Yonder, so I'll have to do some more investigations on that. But we'll say, at least for right now, there are 7 confirmed from this documentation. So, and see, that might be the thing, like Webtoons, maybe they didn't list that. Maybe it wasn't a part of the IPO. Like, I'm not 100% sure on Yonder, because even when I looked at this document, I don't remember seeing anything about Yonder. Like, let's see real quick. Okay, we'll have to come back to that. So, remind me Tuesday if you can, and I will look it up. Because maybe it's listed under one of these, and or maybe it's something that they didn't want to include. So, number 2, going back to them talking about the cultural difference, it says, first, let's look at how many people pay for comics. In Korea, 15.5% of all readers pay for comics, while in Japan, it's 10.1%, and globally, only 4.6% of readers pay for comics. That's a 336% Korea and 220% Japan difference in people's willingness to pay for comics compared to the rest of the world. So then we can see the breakout here, paying users by region, and it has quarters there as well. And so we see Korea, we see Japan, and then we have the other market. And so what is really interesting about that is when we think about the fact that they're moving into this market, the market is smaller, but I feel like there's room for growth. That they'll definitely trying to become like first to market to snatch up all of the users and really expand and grow it there. So it says next, let's look at how much each paying user is paying per month. In Japan, on average, every paying user pays $22.20 every month. That's a total of $266 a year. So that's a lot of money for an average user. Like that's a good bit. That means that they're locked in. $266 a month. In Korea, it's $790 every month. So a year average of $94.80, and globally it's $11.50 every month. So that's totaling $138 yearly. So when we think about this, like just in Korea, that's pretty good considering the fact that this is just one country. And then on the global scale, that seems really low because this is including every market that's not related specifically to Japan and Korea. So we can really see the big discrepancy in the amount of money that these other countries are paying in comparison to places like the US. Put these two things together and you get a fascinating outcome. While Korea and Japan collectively make up only 27% of Webtoon users, together they make up 85% of Webtoon's total revenue. Okay, now this is where it's really interesting. So this is where I think you have to really consider how hard it is to convert like the US dollar, like convert a person to spend their US money. And I don't know why that is per se, why we could be so frugal sometimes in the US and not be willing to spend money on certain things, but definitely waste it on other things. And so it just makes it really reveals a lot in terms of why they go after the other markets so hard and why they really pander. I don't know if that's the best word to use to that particular market because those are the people who are spending money. So like if you're a business and a certain people are the ones who are spending money on you, you really want to aim all of your efforts and aim all of your, drive towards supporting the people that are supporting you. And so if those markets are the ones that are like, we really love the RPG sort of vibe, like Omniscient Readers, Solo Leveling, we really love True Beauty, that might be why you can kind of start to see why those series are what's Webtoon as a whole is really focusing on or adapting, like Korean, what are they called? Like literature? I can't think of what it was. Light novels. Adapting those into Webtoons because people are willing to pay for those, whereas us, we're probably the ones who are like, I will read weekly, I will wait for the free content. And so that might help, I think, a little bit with understanding why so much of Webtoons is circled around that demographic in comparison to the US demographic. Why it's sometimes treated like the redheaded stepchild. And you might disagree with that, but the thing of it is when you're running a business, things aren't about being fair, it's about sustainability. Okay, next, the third point, Webtoons are really hard to make. So there's a total of 55 million titles and total creators are 24 million. That's really insane to me, just from a surface level. And it makes me wonder, I'm like, is this including Canvas? Are you saying that is this including all of your apps? And so we're going to get into it down below and how they're coming up with all of these numbers. But it's just kind of crazy to think about when you see information like that. It's like, wow, you have a gold mine of IP. All right, let's continue. In the intro, you will see some very impressive numbers, including that Webtoons has 55 million titles on the platform. You might think, wow, that's a lot of Webtoons, but there's a big asterisk attached to that number. On page 17, the 55 million titles are shown to be broken down into 54.5 million web novels and 450,000 web comics, which means webcomics make up less than 1% of all the content on the platform. And see, that's where, looking at these numbers on the surface looks really cool, really interesting, but really, it's very ugly, very diabolical. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, if you interpret this information in that way, that's on you. We never said that it was just Webtoons. That's just the name of our company. And so that's where I'm like, we have to do our research on this. So we see even more so, to me, this indicates why sometimes there's such slow change for like actual web comics or Webtoons. It's because when you're looking at what they actually have, web comics make up less than 1%. which is insane. It's insane when you think about the fact that this, like, Webtoons is a webcomic company. At least that's how it's like presented. And then for the content to only be less than 1%, it's kind of shocking. There are probably several reasons that contribute to this low percentage, but the most obvious is that creating a webtoon requires a rare combination of skill, time, and effort. So if you take one thing away from this post, I hope it is to be kind to your webtoon creators. They are the exception, literally the 1% of creators. And that's what's so crazy to me about whenever people are talking about, like, webtoons in general, like from the reader standpoint. I'm like, you have to realize, for one, the story to be good, they have to be somewhat decent at writing. For you to enjoy the art and understand what's going on in the webtoon, because a lot of webtoons use visual storytelling to convey things such as internal dialogue, emotion, that sort of thing, which means that their art skills have to be to a certain level for you to be able to interpret the comic in a way that you find satisfying. And so it's really, 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 really crazy for anyone to kind of pressure creators to produce even faster, because creators aren't robots. And that's where it's like, you know, writing, doing art, just in themselves, people spend their whole lives trying to learn and master, you know, how to make an effective story, how to make a beautiful piece. But like webtoon creators, you're kind of like backed up against the wall where it's like, I have to do both. And then there's the whole like being hard on yourself, that you're wondering why your story's not growing and whatnot. But it's like Danny said here, be kind to yourself. Webtoon creators are the literal exception. Agreed. I 100% agree with Danny here. So let's move on to the 4-point: content, creators, and users. As a business nerd, me too, Danny. The coolest part of this document is this diagram. And let's open it up real quick just so you guys can see it a little bit better. So it says IP adaptations, OTT series, film, game, print books, merchandise. And so it's kind of like a cycle. And so we start here, there's the content. We have the 450,000 web comics, and then the 55 million web novels. And then it says, and that moves into users. So users consume the stories, like they enjoy it, they love it. They're like, yes, we have our favorites. And then that moves into the feedback, fandom, and earnings. So we kind of have where, based off of what the users are enjoying, we might see certain things being created, you know, merchandise, that sort of thing, whatever. And then that feeds into the creators. So we're really seeing like an ecosystem here. Content is being consumed by users. Users are obsessed with the content, which feeds into making money for the creators and being able to, you know, earn as much as possible from like merchandising, from the story itself, and etc. And so then the creators feed back into the beast of the content. And so that comes through, you know, serialized stories, full stories, whatever Webtoons is, you know, throwing out at the time. All right, so looking here, it says Webtoons is a multi-app, multi-billion-dollar company, but they break down their whole business into one diagram with 3 things that they have to do well in order to succeed. Content, have quality content on the platform. Number 2, users, make an engaging app so that people want to spend their time and money. And then 3, creators, incentivize and empower creators to make more great content. So that was our whole ecosystem. And so we saw these 3 things that really are the core of Webtoon's business model, which is a little insane when you think about how simple it is. It's like, you make content, users enjoy content, you make more content, and they just keep feeding the cycle and building from there. And I will say the thing about this that maybe I would love to hear y'all's feedback on is like, do you think that this is the best ecosystem for Webtoons? Like, do you think that there's a better method to this? Because like, as creators, you want people to consume your content and then spend money on it. But Webtoons has a very strict and strong, I don't know, if I want to say rules, but maybe guidelines about how you have to feed the beast consistently, which I don't necessarily think is healthy for anybody. We see so many like mangaka and whatnot recently that are just like overworked to the bone, and I just don't see that life for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I was a mangaka, I would definitely want to, or a webtoon creator. I mean, I could maybe see bi-weekly, but I think monthly would be the most healthy. I'm just not sure. Tuesday Art said, I wonder how they're counting the web novels. Wattpad definitely has more than 54 million titles uploaded on the platform. Maybe they're only counting the official titles on Wattpad. Let's see. That's a great question, Tuesday. Let's look it up and see how many official Wattpad stories are out. Okay, that's not what I wanted. It's telling me how many stories are uploaded. How many stories I'm looking. Okay, so this is what it says on Google. I typed in how many stories on Wattpad are Wattpad original stories, and it said as of October 2023, there are over 1,600 Wattpad original stories. So it seems that it's not even that many. Like, they don't actually make very many originals on Wattpad. But on an earlier post when I asked how many, well, I didn't ask this, but it said that as of 2023, there are over 665 million stories uploaded on Wattpad. So there's a big discrepancy. It seems like Wattpad is a lot more strict about what becomes an original, which I'd have to do more research on that, but it seems like it's really small. So, Lou said, sounds like they were trying to make a YouTube webtoon solely for comics and novels. I agree with that. I think that I don't know. I think that YouTube has a really good business model, and they have their flaws and whatnot, of course, like any company. But it's not a one for one on YouTube because it's so weird to me. I feel like they missed a lot of the core elements of what makes YouTube more successful, especially from a creator standpoint, because it seems to me like YouTube rewards creators more for their efforts and what they bring, to me anyway. Like, if you are getting millions of views, you're obviously getting more money than someone who's getting like 10,000 views. Whereas I feel like Webtoons isn't like that. It's very contractual based, and it's not a fluid contract. It's very much like you'll have to renegotiate when your contract ends. That's what it seems like to me. I could be completely wrong, but it seems more so like you're an independent contractor. We pay you this salary. That's the contract you agree to. I don't care if your series makes 2 million, whatever. And the reason I say that is when we look at the situation that happened between the Let's Play creator when she was trying to, I don't know if she was renegotiating. I don't know, the specifics of what she was doing there. But I feel like they couldn't come to terms, and Webtoons was like, thank you, next. And, or she said that. And they just moved their own ways, and Webtoons was like, yeah, we're not changing what we're doing. Which, in that situation, from what I saw from the public side of things, it seemed like a lot of the discrepancy was over like advertisement. But I think that was also, she wanted to grow the story that she was creating even more, possibly in hopes to increasing her own revenue, which as a business person, that's what you gotta do, people. Like, if you have a webtoon, you don't want it to become stagnant. You want it to keep growing, keep reaching more people, which I completely understand. And I think it was a boss move. And I'm waiting to see how this news story on Manta's gonna do. Tuesday said, made even more interesting considering that Yonder is another web novel platform by Webtoon. Not sure if that's factored in or not. I would be curious because, see, my thing about this is it's saying 55 million web novels, and I'm wondering where it's coming from because, like, okay, so Webtoon Korea comics, Webtoon Comics English, that's like, there's no novels on Webtoon. Then we have Webtoon Japan, also comics. Series Korea, I guess, like this is the web novel stuff. It's 4 of them, but I guess like all of it's coming from this. Like, but we already saw that Wattpad. Let's say by now they have like 2,000. That means that this makes up the rest of that. This is making up practically 55 million. This Moonpie Korea, the ebook Japan, and then the series Korea. I wonder why Yonder's not on there. I'm very curious. We're gonna have to do some investigating on that, guys. Ooh, I have the perfect noise. And this is one of the things that I will say about business. Even with official documents, it doesn't always mean that everything is going to be revealed. So, as we can see, things are a little sus, but let's continue to develop on this. So, moving into our 5th point, the payouts to creators. So, of course, this is probably something that you all are very, very curious about because, if you're trying to do this professionally, obviously you need to know about the monies. Frustration around creator pay has come up in this subreddit multiple times, and coming into reading this document, I want more clarity on how Webtoon was paying creators. However, I didn't get that clarity. Webtoon did share some interesting stats on creator pay. In the year in December 31st, 2023, the average earnings per professional creator on the platform. Okay, there we go. Platform were 48,000, with top 100 creators averaging an average of 1 million, and cumulatively, our creators earned over 2.8 billion between 2017 and 2023. Okay, so this is the top 100 creators. I would be curious if this is talking about globally, just for, context, because that would be really, really interesting to know, or if they're only talking about Korea. But I would assume it has to be globally. I think that would only make sense. Now, see here, it says on average, the average creator is making about 48K. And let me just be honest to all of you who do not know, 48K might sound good. And to an extent it is, but I want to preface this by, before you accept a contract, please understand how, like your living situation, and understand, like, you might have to sacrifice certain things to live on that salary. And I'm not saying that's a bad salary. I'm just saying for the amount of work that you put in, if you're working 70 hours a week and you're making 48K in comparison to someone who's working 40 hours a week and they're making the exact same thing, it kind of, it doesn't necessarily balance itself out. And so you just have to make a smart decision on what you value to be worth it. Like, it's working for yourself 70 hours a week versus working for a corporation 40 hours a week. Like you just have to balance it out. And it's hard to balance something like that out because, like, sometimes you won't know until you experience the situation and understand, like, oh yeah, I could totally do this, I love doing it, versus someone who does it and they're like, I hate this, I'm not even making enough to do what I want to do. And because, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what work is for. It's for you to be able to spend money on things that you want to spend money on. So, with all of that said, I just want to say take that into consideration. And then I would also say if you're younger and you've only worked one job or you're living at home and you want to like move out or do something like that, really sit down and calculate like how much it would cost for you to move out, like calculate some average bills, like if you're going to have a car note, utilities, cell phone bill, internet, all of that stuff, and then see like compared to like what you're going to get in a month and see if it's going to actually be financially possible or if you're going to have to make adjustments where it's like, yes, I have to stay at home right now. So like just figure it out. Okay, RU said, didn't know Webtoon was so big. Yep, they're pretty big. RU also said there's panel requirements that are insane. It's like 100 panels a week. I think it varies because I don't think everybody does 100 panels a week. It could have changed, but we'll get back into that. At first glance, creators earning an average of $48K a year sounds great. However, there's two big reasons why that number might not be that great. Oh, Danny, why are we on the same page again? Like, I can tell Danny's a numbers guy. Shout out to Danny. If you're watching this in the future, comment down below. Taddy is amazing. Number one, original creators are independent contractors, meaning they have to pay all expenses, including hiring, any assistance needed to produce the work. This means that they don't get to take home the full 48K. Exactly. So immediately, this would also be something I think you would want to consider, because are you able to sustain this webtoon completely on your own, or are you going to need help? And the moment that you need help, automatically your gross income is lower because you're already having to pay on something else. So there's going to be like expenses that are associated with this job that Webtoon's not going to help you with. Number two, since Webtoons have big hits like Lore Olympus and Mafia Nana, etc., whose creators earn much more than 48K, those creators' earnings will pull an average, making it look like most creators earn 48K, while in fact a typical creator may not. Therefore, median and not average may be a better way to represent what the typical creator earns. Let's do a quick math example to showcase this. For these 8 numbers, 2, 2, 3, 3, 5, 7, 8, 130, the median is 4, while the average is 20. That's a big difference that is caused because of the presence of an outliner liar of the 130. So you can already see how big this makes the things fluctuate. Like when you're averaging these numbers and these salaries, you really get a good idea when he puts it out like this. Like we have all of these numbers here and then we have this huge number. And so when you hear the average, you might be like, oh, that doesn't sound that bad. But in reality, is that actually the truth? Because, when you're looking at your salary, it's really important to calculate your worth, as well as is this a fair deal before saying yes. Rizzle said, I always thought it was 40 panels a week. I really think it varies, to be honest. Like, I think depending on the type of series that you're creating, that it will be determined based off of that. So, like, I know, like, if you're doing a daily comic, I think, much less panels. And I also think it really depends on the type of story, the genre, that sort of thing. Because like Unordinary, I remember I was counting panels for that, and like the panels varied, but they were always over 100. Whereas there was something else I was reading, and it wasn't like in the action. It was a very like much more slow. It was a romance type story, and it was like averaging 60 panels a week. So it really, I think it was Suit of Armor at the time. I can't remember. It may not have been. I don't remember. I remember when I was going to make a video about this, and I was like, man, these things are all over the place. But that might be something good to make in the future. If you guys want me to do some research into how many panels certain original creators are making, I will, so that you guys can have a better understanding of, you know, how much it varies from person to person, because each contract is definitely different. Tuesday said, I know the creator of, I'm not sure how to say that, acceptation is only required to put out 17 panels per week. They said so on their creator page, so I think it depends on the contract. Yes, I really think it depends on that. Oh, Magiclands, hello. Oh, guys, shout out to Magiclands. They have a YouTube. If I remember, which, guys, please remind me, I will link their YouTube as well as their information so that you can check them out. They also make Webtoon content, so it would be something fun for you guys to listen to. Magicland said, I'm glad I was able to hop on here and catch the live stream. I'm not sure if it was already asked, but isn't the Latin American side of Webtoon creators also paid less? I heard that somewhere. So I have heard that before. I've never confirmed it. I would love to talk to some Latin creators, but I don't know how they would feel about being that transparent about their finances. Like, that's something very personal. And it would also have to be, like, compared to, you know, other creators like US as well as Korean creators, because I definitely think that there's going to be huge discrepancies between the market. And that's why I think opening up, when we were looking at the totals, so let's go back up to number one. Was it number one? Yeah, right here. Users by region. I think the regions where people are really paying the money, so the Korean region, the Japanese region or Japan region, like, they're probably going to have a higher average because people are spending money over there, which means that the creators are likely making more money. So when you look at creators in the US versus them, I think that those creators are always going to make more money because they're bringing in more revenue technically. Even though we have like Lore Olympus, which was a giant like English pushing comic, and like so many people got into webtoons from Lore Olympus, I don't think that just that one creator offset it enough for US creators to have a higher average of what they bring to the table. And I think that'll change with Webtoons being over here. I think you'll see a bigger push from Webtoons to try and bring in more people in the US. Okay, so looking here, you can just see his example of how he brings this out in the average and the median, and how that it would be better represented if we got this number, which, hey, maybe this is like the base pay for creators. Maybe like around 40 to 50K is the base, which I feel like it needs to be because people need a livable wage. And if you're not getting at least that much, I can't even imagine someone making less than 40K with a full-time job. Like, that would be so hard to live on. Like, you would definitely need roommates, you would need support, just because everything's so expensive nowadays. Anyway, in this specific example, average would be a bad way to represent these 8 numbers, as 7 out of the 8 numbers are below the average of 20. It would have been great if Webtoons also shared the median amount creators earn, as it would give more clarity on what a typical original creator would expect to earn. But that data is not this investor document, and because of that, the most frustrating thing about reading this doc is that I know as much about how Webtoon pays creators as I did when I started reading. I will say I disagree with him there, because I think with creators having this information, if you get less than the 48, I would definitely ask Webtoons why. I would be like, why are you lowballing me when in your own documents you said that on average creators make 48K? I can see you giving me maybe 45. I can see you maybe giving me 46. Or, anything between 45 to 48 would be fair. I'm a new creator. I don't have any other experience. This is my first job or whatever. And so I think you can use this information to your benefit in negotiations, because Webtoons itself is saying that this is our average. So this would definitely be a document that I would hold on to. I'd be like, on page blah 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 blah, you said that on an average this is what creators make, and you are lowballing me into 30,000, 40,000. Like, that is very low. And then you can also bring up, cost of living in your state if you're in the US, which this is what this is pertaining to, I'm assuming. I wonder how that works, since I'm like, Rachel's not a US creator. Like, would hers be different? Anyway, on the English side. So I wonder, So I would definitely make sure that I had this in my back pocket, so that when they made the offer, I could counter with something fair and reasonable. And then it would also show that you do your research. Like, you're like, I'm not a dummy. Like, you're not going to just offer me $35K and expect me to be okay with it, when you said on average you're paying creators almost $50K. Get it together, Webtoons. Get it together. Listen, if you need me to come up there, and if you need me to, tell them what's up, I will definitely do it. And I will make sure that I go to bat for you. This will be me. That's exactly how it would be if they sent you that terrible contract. I'd be like, no. We need a better contract. Okay. The sixth point. Oh, Tuesday. Tuesday said, I feel like there's got to be a pay discrepancy between originals with translations compared to originals without, which sucks considering translations are out of creators' control. Breaks my heart to see Spanish language readers asking creators when they're going to update again, and creators not being able to answer because there's no communication between them and Webtoons. I would say, I think, like, if translation is something that's important to you, then that's something that you could, yeah, I'm sorry, headphone users. Then that's definitely something that you could bring up in your contract negotiations about how, like, you really want to work with the translation team, or that's something that's important to you, and being, like, that's a part of your main demographic, that you see that, a lot of users are, what's the word? Spanish speaking, Spanish readers, whatever you want to say. And so that way, you can have a little more leverage. Like, knowing your demographics and knowing what you bring to the table could be really helpful in those negotiations to really be able to give you, like, the best contract as possible. I don't know if people are countering or even bringing up translations when they're going over their contract. That may not be something that they're paying attention to, but it's something that I think that definitely could affect a creator's future revenue. And so I would be like, if y'all aren't going to actively do it, let me handle it, and you can just co-sign it like you do for the English one. Okay, how Webtoons makes money. This topic is much clearer. So Webtoons had to be clear about this because, I mean, let's be honest, like, that you can't hide your money when you're dealing with the government. The government wants to know so they can tax you, so they can put you in the right tax bracket. Okay, this topic is much clearer. 4.6% of users pay for content on Webtoon. So this would be Fast Pass, Daily Pass, or pay for content on web novel apps. What is surprising is that even though webcomics make up less than 1% of the content on the platform, webcomics generate the vast majority of revenue on our platform. So that was a quote, which they don't give an exact number, but they're saying it makes up a bulk. So we'll assume, something very high. They do break down the different streams of revenue they have in paid content. 80% is ads, 11% is, oh wait, okay, I got that backwards. My bad. Paid content is 80%. Ads are 11%. And IP adaptations are 8.4%. So we can see the revenue breakdown here. And I'm bringing this up so that you guys can see it a little better. It's a little bit blurry, but so this is the year end of December 31, 2022 and 23. And so we can see a large bulk of money. So the paid content is green, advertising is purple, and then IP is blue. And so we see, let's do 2023. Oop, there we go. So we can see the funds here. I don't know what this in white is on the top, but we see the blue here is that 180, 145, and then we have 1,029. So we can see that it's really broken out, and it's in millions. So just so we can kind of understand what's going on here, that a large percentage is the paid content. Let's jump back. Okay. However, what may be surprising is where they see their future market opportunity. Now, this is what's important. And I think if you are going to go into getting a contract, then you really need to understand like where they're viewing going with their future endeavors and how they plan to expand. Because if your ideas are counter to theirs, then you'll find yourself at a crossroads like some creators do, and some creators just get fed up with the situation. Aryu said it's amazing how much wealth this thing is generating. I had no idea. That's the thing about it. Like, I think people kind of underestimate Webtoons a little bit, and it's kind of surprising to me because I really want to be like, y'all, when certain startups begin, they have tons of money. Like, that's where you need to do your research. Like, if a startup reached out to you, I would definitely try and look up, like, what their round of funding was, what was their seed money, all of that stuff, to kind of get a gauge of, like, how much money they have so that I could get a better contract. I'd be like, listen, I know you have this much money. And I know that, I'm not trying to be greedy, but if you feel that I bring such value, then I need you to, make a better offer, make something more fair, because a company is always going to lowball you. I don't care. Like, that might get me in trouble, but I feel like most companies are going to try and get you to agree to the smallest offer as possible first. Only if you have a certain level of power will they respect you enough to give you a fair offer. And I don't mean that in a bad way, because I don't want to say it like this, but that's just business. Sorry, had to drink some water. Okay, so this is quoted from the document. We see a market opportunity of approximately 130 billion in paid content, 680 billion in advertising, 900 billion in IP adaptation business. So that was quoted from them directly, meaning they see a much bigger slice of their revenue coming from ads and IP adaptations in the future. So what are IP adaptations and why the big jump in revenue? It's clear that Webtoon sees themselves as a publisher. I want to finish this paragraph because I have a lot of thoughts about this, and I feel like people don't understand what a publisher is. So we're going to go back to that. They're exclusively going after creators who produce content they believe can be big hits across different media formats: film, series, games, books, merchandise. Webtoons will then sign contracts with these creators so they own part of the IP and work with these creators to make their content a big hit on multiple formats. Okay. This is where I want to talk about traditional pub for a second. So he says, it's clear that Webtoon sees themselves as a publisher. I've always said that they're a publisher. Like, it's never felt to me like they were anything else. They just kind of made it seem like they were something else. And I think it's because of Webtoon Canvas that people view them a little differently. And that's why people kind of make the comparison of them to YouTube. And so let me cook for a second. Let me cook. And the reason I say this, Webtoon Canvas is really good from a PR perspective because you can really talk about like how you allow, creators, young and old, to really be able to express themselves in a place, taking off the burden of them having to host their own sites or having to look for, places to build their own following on sites that may not get as much traffic, because Webtoons gets a lot of traffic. And so they can always stand on saying to the public that we give opportunities to all creators to build and become professionals from our platform. And when we find series that really fit our needs at the moment, we extend contracts to those and we try to help them to grow their platform and, you know, become future artists, future writers of, you know, tomorrow. And like, so that, what I'm saying, the reason I'm saying it that way is because like it's a very nice, like very good PR way of always being able to present yourself as doing something for the community. But at the end of the day, behind the facade, behind Webtoon Canvas, which is a shield for them, and I don't mean this in a bad way because I think it's kind of genius, but they're just the traditional publisher. They're like, you have a contract with us. We expect a certain, and this is the thing. Like, if you get picked up sometimes by a traditional publisher, they will give you money in the beginning that is for you to kind of float you through while you're working on your project. And then once you finish working on the project, you turn it into them, or, you know, go through edits and all of that stuff. Anyway, you get to market, you release the series, and once the series is out in the world, it now has to make revenue. So the money that they gave you, you have to make that revenue back in order to pay. Like if they gave you $10,000, the series needs to make $10,000 before you start making money. Now that may not be a one-for-one for Webtoons, but my point is with this is Webtoons is kind of similar in some of their behaviors from what I've learned with how, you know, maybe they treat their fast pass money for originals, or they treat creators in terms of paying them. Like, it's very much like we get the money first and then you might get some of the money. And the reason I've always said it's kind of like traditional is if we go back to that YouTube comparison, YouTube kind of like lets you know very transparently behind the scenes, like, okay, this video should make this amount of money based off of this many streams. You don't get that information, at least from what I understand, from Webtoons. Webtoons is not like, oh yes, you've received this many fast passes, therefore we pay you this. From what I've understood, Webtoons is sometimes like, yeah, you just haven't made it there yet, keep working. And it's like, well, what are the numbers? And it's like, well, you're at this, and I need to be aware. Yeah, at this. Okay, so in my next episode, yeah, maybe, we'll see. So there's no transparency. Like, there's less control on the creator's side. It's very much, I own everything, you're the contractor, and I'll give you what I give you when I feel like it. And as someone who's worked as a contractor before, not in an artistic field, but in like the business world, like being a contractor can really suck when there's not a lot of transparency there. Next, we kind of go into them talking about, well, Danny brings it up here. He says films, series, games, books, and merch. I really feel that we're going to see a huger push in their Webtoon store for people to buy stuff from them. And I think once they find the right series that they can really brand, you know, something really cute, something adorable, something nice, that they'll be able to skyrocket that. Like, they're looking for certain things, I think, to really build that area. Now, as far as films go, I definitely think certain Webtoons lend themselves better to film than others. And so that might be something you want to consider when you're making your Webtoon, if you want to, like, if you're just looking for like Webtoon stardom and it's making a series that could be easily adapted into film. Because, you know, certain series, like if you look at certain K-dramas, you look at certain Chinese dramas, that sort of thing, certain ones are easier to adapt than others because of the elements within them. If it's just like a cute little romance, then it's really easy to adapt something like that in comparison to like a Solo Leveling or like something that has a lot of fantastical elements in it. Now, you could make it work, like something like Game of Thrones, where it's in a very much fantastical environment, but you don't see a lot of like the mystical elements. It's more politically driven. But it's something to consider and something that you could use in negotiations when you're talking to them, because you can be like, well, I know that you're very interested in moving into Hollywood, and I feel like my series could be adapted really easily. What are your thoughts on it? Where do you see the series going? And you can kind of get a vibe from them on what they think, and if that needs to be something included in your contract to make sure you get the most amount of money if they do decide to go that route. And if they are going to go that route, like, what control do you have in that process? Is it just like they take the series and they act as your agent? Because them acting as your agent is also something else that is like a whole nother thing. So, are you able to hire an agent? Like, there's a lot of things that will need to be considered going down that route. So just think about all of the things that would need to be considered to make the best possible deal. And I feel like 48K ain't worth it. Like, if they're planning to do all of these things, I'd be like, I need some control to make sure that some of these moves actually happen. Okay, number 7, how Webtoon uses AI. So we're getting into some of the AI stuff, which I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. Because I recently talked about AI with the NaNoWriMo situation, so I'd love to find out more from you guys. Currently, Webtoon uses AI to reduce the workload for their original creators. Specifically, they have built 2 tools. Shaper, which helps build 3D character models so that they can change the character poses without the need to sketch each pose. Constella converts the 3D character models into 2D characters in the creator's drawing style. Okay, so let's look at this real quick. So we can see here, creator drawn, original image from LICO title, What a Lovely Day. So here's the test model right here. And then here's the test output image from, so this is like, I guess, the sketch. And I guess you can move this as you want it to kind of fit like the vibe, the style. And then once you get it the way you want, it produces it out like this. And then the creator can kind of like fix it, adjust it, make it look how they want it to look. And so we see like very much that like it looks decent to me. Like, I was trying to think of a way to say it, but I think it looks decent. And I don't know if you guys, like, how you guys feel about it, because, like, do you think this is cheating? But then I want to ask, like, what about Clip Studio and the models? Like, I see people trace those. So I'm wondering, like, do you guys think, like, this is an agreeable program? Do you think, like, Webtoon shouldn't, allow this? Like, what are your thoughts? I'm very curious. And then looking down here, it says, Webtoon says the goal of these tools is to help creators produce more high quality content, and that they foresee bringing these tools to Canvas creators in the future. I would be interested to see what it looks like them bringing these tools to Canvas. And I feel like, I wonder if they would get a lot of backlash, just because right now, to me, if I'm just looking at the situation from a very like observant side eye situation, AI is just not accepted at all. And I can't see creators responding to this very favorably. So it just makes me wonder, like, will people accept this, or will this just be something like a nail in the coffin? Adagon said, I draw dragons that combine different anatomies, so models NIA are a complete no-go for me if I ever wanted to use them. Aryu said, that seems cleaner than just generating an old image on ChatGPT. I'm not saying that people won't use it. I'm just saying I wonder if there'll be backlash for Webtoons releasing it because of how so many people are against AI completely. Like, people do not want it used at all in the art process. And so I'm just wondering if allowing a program like this to be released into world on Canvas, because I'm assuming if it's on Canvas, it's going to be free. So it's kind of like you're giving AI, people who don't draw, or creators who, put in a lot of effort to make their art look really good, putting them at a slight disadvantage, because now everybody's art can look, really polished, really good, because people are just tracing these images. Adagong said, I wouldn't accept using AI in Webtoons. I prefer going as practical as possible. And see, that's my thing about this is like, I see the benefits. If it was just the sketch, I feel like the sketch is okay to me. I I I do think that the like output image from Costella is maybe a little too much in my opinion, because I feel like it's now just making an image. Like it's not necessarily, and I can see it for originals because like that workload is crazy, but I'm also just like there needs to be a balance to this. Like what do we do? What do we do? But I guess Webtoons is trying to address the problem and help creators in what will be the most cost effective way as possible. All right, number 8, a really engaged audience. It's clear that readers love Webtoon. On average, users use the app almost every day for 30 minutes plus a day. And the more months a user uses the app, the more series they read. Our users base is highly engaged and deeply loyal. 77% of users agree that Webtoon has content they cannot find anywhere else. I slightly agree, slightly disagree. So I don't know about that statement. I do think like yes and no. I think it's hard to say. I feel like there's content just like this. It's just this content is available for free for people to consume and read. Delphi said, I think realistically AI will be used in the future because of how much time it saves. I think the major issue with AI is copyright infringement from learning from images without consent. And that's my thing. I can definitely see on the original side, like this being a very useful tool. But I think on the Canvas side, I can see it being really abused to an extent because like, how will the AI know like when a character is stolen versus someone actually made the character? And so then you have like characters that look just like someone else's artwork, but they didn't use any of the effort to go through like the design process. Like I can just see there being a bunch of like red flags, and I can see a lot of art looking the same because people just like tracing stuff and putting it into the generator without actually doing anything. Like, as you guys know, I'm not necessarily against AI. I do see a lot of benefits from it. And I do also think, like, it could help creators so much in terms of, like, maybe it could help them not, hire an assistant. Maybe it could help them, do a bunch of different things that, really puts a burden off of them. I'm just wondering how they're going to regulate it. And I don't think they will. Delphi said, but if the image is generated using the creator's art to save up time with their consent, that's another story. There's also the risk of Webtoon sidelining the artist after feeding the AI. Yeah, that's another thing. I would be curious is once I feed this program the AI, like, does it, do you have access to that now? Like, am I helping it to learn? Like, can it now, use my images? I would be curious about that. Delphi said, it's a capitalist world, though. The way Webtoon works right now, with demands they have in little time, is not manageable in the long run. I'm not saying I like this, but it makes sense for the company. I agree, it does make sense. I'd be happier if generative AI was never invented, but now exists. I don't think it'll stop being implemented. I agree. I do think that it's one of those situations where it's like it's out in the world and, all we can do is figure out the best ways to use it ethically. Adagong said, yeah, AI is best for me when I'm trying to organize things digitally, like filtering out information or grouping information under certain terms to use groups instead of going one by one. It does have its uses, like 100%. And I'm not disagreeing with that at all. I'm just saying I wonder how the community will respond. And I don't know if it'll be a good response. And that's what I think I'm concerned about. Adagong said, we artists just gonna have to learn how to handle this generative AI. Tuesday said, looking through documents on the SEC doc and the prospectus defines Webtoon as Webtoon Entertainment Inc. and its consolidated subsidiaries. Right. So, we're going back to the Yonder thing. So, Yonder should fall under that even if it isn't listed in that document, but I'm not a lawyer, so take it with a grain of salt. So, well, that's the thing. I wonder if they're just so. This is where I'm just gonna address this, and you guys see if you can follow what I'm saying. I I don't know how much how it's going to work because they're overseas, and I'm not familiar or understand completely how the overseas laws work, because I'm feeling like Webtoons can be like, well, we're only bringing this part of our company to the US, we're not bringing the rest of it. So like we'll have access to these portions of information on the stock market, and this is where we're getting our numbers from, because I'm wondering if they didn't include Yonder because it loses them a lot of money. Like that's what I'm wondering. Like I'm wondering if they didn't include certain things to make sure that they looked the best, looked as good as possible going forward. And that's what's I won't say concerning, but that's where I'm just like I need to understand the international law a little bit better and be able to either have someone explain it to me or do more research to really understand if I own a company and I have different subsidiaries a part of this company and I'm moving, part of my company is opening in the US, do I have to open all of it, or can I just open a portion of it and leave this company, Yonder, or any other company here that's not available for access? And so that's what I think they're doing, why everything isn't listed. Tuesday said, the interesting thing is that Yonder is a joint thing between Webtoon and Wattpad. It's on Wattpad's FAQ. I wonder if they combined them then, if they rolled them into one. I'm definitely going to do some research on that, and we can talk about it in the future, Tuesday. I would be really interested to see. Octobeans, what is up? So glad that you could be here. All right, so let's look at this. So it says 9 and 10 users are established using Webtoon for 1 year plus. 97% of users agree Webtoons is more entertaining and fun than Roblox, Netflix, and TikTok. Okay, interesting. 71% of users agree that Webtoons has the best content. Interesting. 86% of users believe Webtoon makes them feel good. 30 to 120 minutes spent per day by a majority of users. More users spend 1+ hour on Webtoon than users spend 1+ hour on Facebook, X, Instagram, Reddit, Discord, and other platforms. Very interesting. Very interesting. So, in the final comments, he says, it is fascinating that Webtoon compares themselves with Roblox, Netflix, and TikTok, but I think that speaks more to how all big tech companies are competing for our time and attention. That's the end, so please comment below if you have any questions or insights. Before you go, I do think it's important to say two things. Since Webtoon is now publicly traded stock, I think it's important to say that my background is not in investing or finance, so don't make any buying or selling stock decisions based on what I wrote. That would be silly, and you are not a silly person. I am the founder of Taddy Inc., which helps Webtoon creators distribute their comics to multiple comic apps, so I am a bit biased on this topic. It is also the reason I'm willing to take the time to read the whole investor document. And let me just say this, I do think that, Taddy did include Danny did include, his own perspective on a lot of this, which I agree with, a majority of it. But I do think he also just gave a lot of the core information that creators can take from it, and that you can look at the SEC document yourself and see, in detail, their explanation. It's going to have you see this paragraph? This is from that picture we looked at earlier. and it's going to have a lot of legalese and a lot of additional, like information where you might be like, I just wanted the meat, I wanted the summary, and that's what Taddy gave you in his post, and that's what I was trying to do with this information here. So if you want, we can look at a few of the comments and then we'll wrap up. So Audrey Fish said, I'd really love more transparency about Webtoon contracts, but alas, that's not public info. I'd also love for them to ban AI completely. This is what I was talking about, the AI thing. It's so frustrating seeing comics on both Canvas and originals using AI. Don't get me wrong, I completely understand original creators needing to keep up with deadlines, but it's sad to see them using tools that scrape data from other artists without their consent. It's very clear that both readers and creators don't appreciate it when creators use AI based on the extremely low ratings of comics that do. Also, I really wish they would get rid of the rating system. I've seen friends' comics get bomb rated for no reason, and it sucks when they put so much hard work into them. That's why I love Taddy's recommendation feature. I will say that, I personally don't think the rate system impacts anything. It's just like a fun gimmick that Webtoons included because other reading platforms include. And I say fun because I think for like users, them being able to rate your series gives them like a sense of power. So I think that's just one of the things. Magiclands said, oh my god, exactly. Yep. Tuesday said, Webtoon sent out a draft registration statement on December 15th, 2023. I can't read that. But most of the documentation is from 2024. Okay, got it. What if Webtoonists had the ability to control whether children could read their webtoon themselves instead of someone else? What are you referring to, Adagong? Are we talking about the rate system? Because listen, I got some thoughts on the rate system and we're going to be talking about it on Monday. So if you guys want to hear, my thoughts on it and my perspective, which I feel like a lot of you are not going to agree with, just hold out because we're going to be covering it on Monday. Okay, this is a comment. Oh, wait, I think that's Danny. Is that Danny? That's a cute little avatar. All right, let's see if we can find another comment. Okay, let's look at this one. I was somewhat physically present when Webtoon went public, and one of the things asked/discussed when it came to new developments for the company was that they wanted to expand into animation, but I'm not really sure what that would look like for them yet. Yeah, I think it is Danny. So he said they mentioned the example of Crunchyroll releasing solo leveling anime in the document. Sorry for not being clear. The person I spoke with at the event is in NYC last Thursday. I mentioned that they wanted their own platform for animation, but I'm not aware of Solo Leveling and Tower of God being available for stream. Yeah, so I do kind of think that I could definitely see them developing their own streaming platform, but I think that's way in the future. Like they're not ready for that yet. I think they're gonna keep releasing film. They're gonna air on the movie side, and I think if anything, we'll see them partner more with Crunchyroll if that relationship is still good or not. Because I'm curious what their relationship with Crunchyroll is gonna look like now that they're public in the US. So I'd be very, very interested to see how they continue to grow that relationship, because the funny thing about it is I was really expecting a lot more from them now that they've had a few anime under their belt, but it seems like they're going for a particular type of webtoon. Like I think Webtoons ended up seeing the cost of making a series like God of High School and Tower of God, and they realized like, I don't think we have the budget for this. And so that might be, which, I mean, True Beauty is really popular, but I think that's why we're seeing more stories like True Beauty that are less on the action and focus, a little more on like daily life sort of stuff. Oh, you're excited for that conversation about the rate system? Listen, side eye. That's all I can say. That's all I can say. That's all I can say. But I feel like it's definitely gonna be one of these. I feel like everybody's gonna be looking at me like that. All right, let's read one more comment. Okay, this one's pretty good. Like it's got a lot of heft to it. Thanks for this. I like to read research and metrics from the perspective of original creators, down to how the contracts have affected their work, how varying likes and readership affects their income weekly, and if that affects their day-to-day expenses. What they really get paid after taxes and paying for their own assistance, which yes, Webtoon doesn't help with. The amount of hours truly required for weekly updates, if their contracts are actually fair / worth it, and the work-life balance of all of it. But it'll never come out because it's like any other business that doesn't want to air out their dirty laundry, and I know those NDAs are ironclad. I'm disappointed with the AI. I get the intent, but I have a feeling that AI will be trained so well on people's comics in a few months / years. They'll be able to generate full comics without the involvement of creators, all while using works previous artists suffered so much to create. The company would make more money and no longer deal with the headaches of contracts and creators. It's interesting how a lot of companies are so quickly integrating AI into their workflow, irrespective of how it affects workers. But profits, right? I'm really dreading it, and I hope readers take a stand against it if it ever gets to that point. But from how I see the average person reacting to AI and some accomplished artists succumbing to tools, I'm not hopeful. So let me just say this. And this is where I kind of get what this person is saying. Like Webtoons, as we saw, has a lot of literature content. So we're talking about content that, no art is associated with it. Once their own AI program gets fully trained, and let's say it's being trained from using artists who use the program, so it would all be 100% ethical. This is what I'm saying. So you're feeding their AI by, uploading your character turnarounds, uploading different information into it. And so you agree to do it. The AI is learning. And so now when their web novels are coming out, they don't need any artists. They can literally just AI generate it and maybe have someone like an artist to go through and proof it to make sure everything looks normal. Nothing has 6 hands or something like that, or 6 fingers, something like that. Or the face lines up perfectly. And that's where I feel like things could go a little awry, which they would be well within their right to use the generated images, because it was all consensual and it learned from the creator submitting that information. And that's what kind of has me on the edge a little bit about that. Just saying. Adagon said, this rate system is stirring up the entire community like nothing. Yeah, it really is. And I'm going to try and give a perspective from it, from both sides, from the creator side and from the business side of things. And what I'm probably going to have to really focus in on is making sure it's clear that there's a business reason behind this, and I think it's connected to the IPO. Just saying. But we'll get into it in that stream. Tuesday say, if you want to see quarterly reports, inside trading, stuff, etc., it's on the SEC website through their Edgar search. Yes, we'll be covering that in the future. I'm hoping that their quarterlies are something that'll be interesting enough for me to cover on the channel that we all can look forward to and discuss and kind of get a better understanding of what's going on. Not sure how understandable it is to the layperson, but there could be juicy things there. There's always juicy information in the quarterly reports because you can understand how they're doing financially. And if you take away anything from a quarterly report, is if they're offering you a contract during a quarter where they're doing really well, that gives you a little more leverage to negotiate for more money, in my opinion, because there's no excuse why you can't give it to me. You're not down. You've received an increase in revenue, which means you can afford to pay me more. So if you can take away anything, you get a contract, check that quarterly report to see how well they're doing and if they're doing good or not. Because let me tell you, Webtoons recently had a little bit of an issue after they came out and their stock prices dropped, and a lot of the investors were upset with them, and Webtoons quickly addressed that and was like, oh no, like revenue's down because we had to spend extra because of this IPO launch, but that's only a one-time thing, and the quarterly, like the next quarterly is going to reflect that we didn't have that additional cost, so everything is good. So the quarterly is important, and shareholders, investors, and everybody uses that to gauge different temperatures of what's going on with the company. And so as a creator, if you get smart enough, I feel like you can use that too. Just a little thing to keep in your back pocket. Okay, I said we were just going to look at those three. There are additional comments, like Danny responded to a lot of stuff, but I do want to say that just reading through some of these, you can already test the temperature and see that the AI thing is going to be a big issue. And I feel like if I was advising Webtoons, I'd be like, you guys just gotta wait. You just gotta wait. Like, I'm sorry. Like, keep it with the originals. Do not release it to Canvas just yet. Like, we've got to see how things are going to pay out morally, ethically, and legally before, like Webtoons. You're dealing with artists. Please understand. Like, you gotta wait. You really gotta wait. I promise. Like, it will do you the best to be patient. Focus on other things, like build your Netflix, Webtoon on demand, Webtoon Plus, build that. Okay. Jess said, or just not even read the contract. That seems to be most common. That is the most common, and it drives me insane, Jess. I am not a fan. I swear, if you did not read your contract and we talk, if you have any complaints, my first thing I'm going to say is, did you read the contract? And if you said no, I'm like, well, nobody can help you. There's no help for you until your contract ends. All right. So off of that, let's open the PowerPoint back up real quick. So I've been yapping for a minute, and I just want to say it's been super fun. Going over that Reddit document was pretty cool. I like that it was broken up into something easily digestible for us. Of course, if you want to read the actual SEC documents, go ahead and do that. Like, look over some of it. Everything will be, if it's not already, linked down below. I will make sure that if you guys leave a comment asking a specific question, I'll try and get back to you so that we can discuss it, because I would love to talk some more about, what your thoughts are on everything that's going on. And so with that, and what makes this so amazing is Magiclands is actually here. Hello. Like, I shouted you out earlier, but also you're like my shout out for the stream. And so if you want a shout out during any of our streams, the easiest way to do that is by being a follower, being super active on the channel. I try to go through followers and pick out people, just to amp you guys up, because you guys deserve it. All right, so the series that we're shouting out, it's entitled Changeling, and it's a fantasy romance series. The summary goes, sassy, barefoot, and particularly nude, a powerful sorcerer called the Changeling curses a girl to die when she turns 21. With only 365 days left to break her curse, she hires a depressed homeless man to join her mission to kill the Changeling before her time is up. Okay, hold up. Is this the depressed man? Like, I think this is an accurate time to use, like, my little meme board. Oh no, I've lost it. Oh, here we go. This is not a homeless man. Like, what is this? What is this? Explain yourself, Magiclands. Anyway, the premise sounds really cool, like very interesting. I will definitely add this to my list of things to check out. So if you guys want to, make sure to support the creator, check out all of their information. I will have everything linked down below. And Magiclands looks like a very fun ride. And so with that, our question to the community. So if you're watching this in the future, please comment down below. What improvements would you like to see from Webtoons? What are your thoughts on the IPO information? And I'd be very curious to hear what your thoughts are as well on the Webtoon salary and on Webtoons using AI for Webtoon Canvas specifically, because I'm very curious about that. Let me know in the comments down below. Also, a huge thank you to our patrons. I really appreciate all of the support. We have a exclusive video that you can check out. It is on the free tier that's available every month, and it's just me yapping about different topics that I am enjoying and kind of obsessed with. And so with that, I will say thank you to all of you for being here. It's so fun to be back. I'm so glad that I'm able to, stream with you guys again, and my schedule is getting back to normal. And so with that, I will catch you all in the next video.